Germany has confirmed that when the Iran fiasco was going down, Donald Trump threatened Europe with an absolutely bonkers 25% tariff on European cars. And the goal of this was to force Europe to start proceedings against Iran for violating the nuclear deal, which, of course, they only decided to do after Donald Trump already had pulled the United States from that deal without Iran having violated it in any way. And this really is going to require sort of a multi-level analysis to unwind every absolutely ridiculous and embarrassing aspect of this. So at first, this was merely an allegation by the supposedly fake news Amazon Jeff Bezos Washington Post. And it just so happens that it's been confirmed as really good reporting. The claim in the Washington Post was that Donald Trump secretly warned France and Germany and the United Kingdom that the United States would impose a 25% tariff on European cars if those countries, if Europe didn't trigger the dispute settlement process contained in the Iran nuclear agreement. The German defense minister, Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, said in London that, quote, this expression or threat, as you will, does exist. It was indeed a threat that Donald Trump made. Trumpists are pretending that everything's fine, and they're actually defending Donald Trump, saying it worked because Europe reportedly is now triggering the dispute mechanism contained in that deal, except that every European country is saying that they had already made that decision before Donald Trump issued this threat, and it had nothing to do with Donald Trump's threat whatsoever. So there's a few stories here, and I want to take time to go through each of them. First of all, it is Donald Trump who ruined the Iran nuclear deal. Iran is now admitting they're enriching uranium beyond the limits of the 2015 deal. And why wouldn't they? It's the correct game theory move if you game this out. Trump bails on the deal. Starting to enrich uranium gives them more negotiation leverage in the future. And again, it's Donald Trump who bailed on the deal anyway. Donald Trump then assassinating the Iranian Quds leader, Qasem Soleimani, cemented Iran's decision to scale up nuclear development. Number two, Trump is wildly and brazenly threatening our allies with leverage that he actually doesn't have here. That's what's really important to understand. He doesn't have the leverage as he is increasingly the laughingstock geopolitically and of European U.S. foreign policy. And then number three, and this is really important, why would anyone get into any agreement with the United States in good faith when Donald Trump sometimes backs out of deals, even when the other country has stuck to its part, has done its part to stay in the deal, to stay in compliance with the deal, and otherwise will randomly threaten tariffs for unrelated requests? If you're another country and the U.S. says, let's do a deal, let's do a trade deal, let's do a nuclear deal, let's do a joint defense deal, whatever. But then the next president comes into the United States Oval Office, says, I didn't like what that last person did, and cancels the deal. Why do you take deals seriously? Why do you even get into deals in the first place? When you have all sorts of deals with the United States, and then the United States randomly threatens you with a 25% tariff because they want you to persecute another country, why even bother? Why would you see the United States as a credible participant in deals? You wouldn't. And the United States increasingly is not seen as credible. This is how little kids work. And even little kids, there's actually been interesting studies done where little kids seem to have they have a sense of fairness that I don't want to say is innate, but very early on in childhood, they exhibit a sense of understanding of what fairness means. They seem to exhibit more of that sense than Donald Trump seems to exhibit. And then never mind that, because once again, Donald Trump is threatening to punish Europe with tariffs whose cost would not be borne by Europe. The cost would be borne here in the United States. Notice, by the way, that for Donald Trump, tariffs are Trump's hammer, and so everything looks like a nail. It's the only tool Trump has, to use an analogy. Someone told Donald Trump about tariffs early on in his campaign. Remember when he was running on, I understand trade, only I can fix it. And tariffs are the only tool that Donald Trump has, and he threatens to use that tool everywhere, like a hammer would be used, everything looking like a nail when that's the only tool that you have, whether it's with China for economic reasons, whether it's with Europe here for foreign policy reasons. I guess tariffs and maybe the occasional bomb or assassination, better said, are the tools that Donald Trump has. It's all backwards. It's a completely farcical universe that we're living in. Trump violates the Iran nuclear deal, sanctions Iran, threatens Europe to get them to do more to Iran. Europe wants no part of the bigger picture, even though on the mechanism they had already decided to trigger that. And we once again are the laughing stock with the leaders of other countries talking among themselves about, did you see this crazy thing that Donald Trump did? As this is business as usual now in the United States. It's an embarrassing moment to be led by the person that is in the Oval Office. Now, hopefully, we can get back to a more sort of rational and thoughtful approach to these issues after Donald Trump is gone. But removing Donald Trump is merely step one in this process. And, the early in Trump's presidency, I would say a lot of the things that he's doing can be very quickly undone. A lot of these symbolic executive orders can be immediately canceled by the next president. Some of the policy stuff can be pretty quickly undone by the next president. We are now in the realm of this stuff will take a long time to fix. Removing Trump is only one part of it. We're talking, of course, of the relationships with other countries that Donald Trump has ruined and the credibility that's been lost. Behind the scenes, we might think, well, you just change the president and all that stuff gets fixed. No, because there's a trickle down effect from Trump to the diplomatic relationships where a lot of the foreign policy is actually done. A lot of the by the time Trump talks to another world leader, a lot of the negotiation and the foreign policy work has been done by the diplomats from the State Department and the diplomats from other countries. The relationships that Donald Trump is ruining trickle down and affect diplomatic relations at many levels. And it's going to take a very long time for that to be undone and fixed, even when Donald Trump is gone. I won't go into this again because we've talked about it before, but then you've got judges in the judiciary. It continues. I mean, even now, while we are looking at the impeachment Senate trial, Donald Trump looking at making bribery legal. I'll talk about that later on in the show. Donald Trump calling his generals dopes and babies. I'll talk about that later. We're talking about all of these big embarrassments. Meanwhile, and we're continuing to cover it, the judges continue to be just swept in, often to lifetime positions, certainly to affect American jurisprudence for decades to come. And that is that's not even an issue of we've got to get Trump out to undo it. It's we've got to get Trump out, and then we need to wait a long time for these folks to retire or die. And then we are going to have another shot at filling a lot of these judgeships. So it's a disaster. We are covering it. We'll continue to cover it. But importantly, step one is an important one, removing Donald Trump from office. But it is only step one is what I want to convey to you today.